Hi guys, welcome to Relationship Stories with TaleTime. The first story is titled, My Spoiled Golden Child Sister Slept with My Husband, After Family Abandoned Me Years Ago. I gave both a deeply needed reality check. The story starts like this. Growing up, I always felt like the black sheep of the family. My parents, John and Sarah, had two daughters, me, Emma, and my younger sister, Olivia. From the moment Olivia was born, it was clear that she was the golden child who could do no wrong in their eyes. As we grew older, the differences in how our parents treated us became more apparent. Olivia excelled in school, participated in countless extracurricular activities, and had a vibrant social life. I, on the other hand, struggled academically and found it hard to make friends. While our parents praised Olivia's every achievement, they barely acknowledged my efforts. Olivia basked in the attention and took every opportunity to rub her successes in my face. She would often make snide remarks about my appearance, my lack of friends, and my poor grades. Our parents never intervened, and I felt increasingly isolated within my own family. When it came time for college, Olivia was accepted into a prestigious university, and our parents couldn't have been more thrilled. They happily paid for her tuition, room and board, and even a new car. I, however, had to take out loans and work part-time to afford community college. Despite the challenges, I worked hard and eventually graduated. I met my husband, David, shortly after, and we fell in love. When I introduced him to my family, they seemed uninterested and dismissive. Olivia, who had just started dating a wealthy businessman, made it a point to highlight David's modest background and job. As David and I planned our wedding, my parents made it clear that they wouldn't be contributing financially. They claimed that they had already spent too much on Olivia's education and couldn't afford to help. It hurt, but we managed to have a small, intimate ceremony with the help of our friends and David's family. Over the years, my relationship with my family became strained. They rarely invited us to family gatherings, and when we did attend, they would lavish attention on Olivia and her husband while barely acknowledging our presence. It became increasingly clear that they saw Olivia as their pride and joy, while I was merely an afterthought. The final straw came when my father fell ill, and I took time off work to help care for him. Despite my efforts, my mother and Olivia made it clear that they didn't want me there. They accused me of being a burden and not doing enough, while Olivia, who rarely visited, was praised for her minimal contributions. After my father passed away, I was devastated to learn that he had left the majority of his estate to Olivia. My mother and sister made no attempt to conceal their satisfaction with the arrangement. I felt betrayed and abandoned by my own family. David and I decided to distance ourselves from my toxic family and focus on our own lives. We bought a small house and worked hard to create a loving home filled with warmth and understanding, something I had never experienced growing up. It had been a particularly long day at work, and I was looking forward to a quiet evening at home with David. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked in front of our house. Curious, I made my way inside, calling out for David as I entered. The house was eerily quiet, and a sense of unease crept over me. I walked upstairs, and as I approached our bedroom, I heard muffled voices and the sound of movement. My heart raced as I pushed open the door, and the sight before me shattered my world into a million pieces. There, in our bed, was my husband, David, tangled in the sheets with none other than my sister, Olivia. They froze as they saw me, their eyes wide with shock and guilt. I stood there, unable to move or speak, as the reality of the situation sank in. Olivia was the first to break the silence. "Emma, we didn't mean for this to happen. It just did," she stuttered, pulling the sheets around her naked body. David sat up, his face pale. "Emma, please, let me explain. It's not what it looks like." Rage boiled inside me, and I found my voice. "Not what it looks like? My husband is in bed with my sister, and it's not what it looks like? How long has this been going on?" They both looked down, avoiding my gaze. The silence was deafening, and I could feel my heart breaking with each passing second. Finally, Olivia spoke, her voice trembling. "A few months. It started when I came over to help David with some work stuff, and things just escalated. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own sister, the golden child who could do no wrong, had betrayed me in the most heinous way possible. And my husband, the man I had loved and trusted, had thrown away our marriage for a cheap fling. I turned and ran out of the room, tears streaming down my face. I grabbed my keys and drove to my parents' house, desperate for some support and understanding. When I arrived, I found my mother and Olivia already there, both looking somber. As I poured out my heart, revealing the devastating betrayal, my mother's reaction stunned me. Instead of offering comfort or sympathy, she looked at me with a mixture of pity and annoyance. "Emma, dear, you have to understand. Olivia has always been the more attractive and successful one. It's only natural that David would be drawn to her. Maybe if you had put more effort into your appearance and career, this wouldn't have happened. I was speechless. My own mother was defending Olivia and blaming me for my husband's infidelity. Olivia sat there, a smug look on her face, relishing in the attention and the fact that she had once again proven her superiority over me. I left my parents' house, feeling more alone than ever. The two people I had trusted most in the world had betrayed me, and my own family had sided with them. I drove around aimlessly, my mind reeling, trying to make sense of the shattered pieces of my life. When I finally returned home, David was gone, along with most of his belongings. He had left a note, apologizing for the pain he had caused and saying that he needed some time to think. I crumpled the note, feeling a bitter laugh escape my lips. Time to think, indeed. In the days that followed, I learned the true extent of their betrayal. David and Olivia had been carrying on their affair for months, meeting up whenever they had the chance. They had even gone on a secret weekend getaway together, all while I was oblivious, trusting them both implicitly. The news of their affair spread quickly, and I found myself the subject of gossip and pity among our friends and acquaintances. My world had crumbled around me, and I was left to pick up the pieces alone. I fell into a deep depression, barely able to function. I lost weight, couldn't sleep, and found it hard to concentrate at work. My once happy life had turned into a living nightmare, and I saw no way out. But as I hit rock bottom, something inside me shifted. I realized that I couldn't let their betrayal define me. I had to take control of my life and find a way to move forward, with or without them. It was time for a reality check, not just for David and Olivia, but for myself as well. I had spent too long living in the shadow of my family's expectations and trying to win their approval. It was time to focus on my own happiness and well-being. With a newfound sense of determination, I began to plan my comeback. I would show them all that I was stronger than they ever gave me credit for, and I would come out on top, no matter what it took. As I sat in my empty house, surrounded by the remnants of my shattered life, I realized that I had two choices. I could continue to wallow in self-pity and let their betrayal consume me, or I could take control of my life and rebuild myself from the ground up. I chose the latter. I started by focusing on my own well-being. I began seeing a therapist who helped me work through my emotions and develop coping mechanisms. I also joined a gym and started eating healthier, channeling my pain and anger into physical activity. Slowly but surely, I began to feel stronger, both mentally and physically. As I worked on myself, I also started to reevaluate my relationships. I cut ties with the toxic friends who had reveled in my misery and surrounded myself with a small but supportive group of people who had my best interests at heart. I learned to set boundaries and stand up for myself, no longer allowing others to take advantage of my kindness. One day, as I was leaving the gym, I ran into Olivia. She looked surprised to see me, her eyes widening as she took in my transformed appearance. I had lost weight, gained muscle, and carried myself with a newfound confidence. "Emma, wow, you look different," she stammered, trying to regain her composure. I smiled, a cold, calculated smile. "I am different, Olivia. I'm not the same person you knew before. The one you could manipulate and betray without consequence." She had the decency to look ashamed, but I could see the flicker of envy in her eyes. "Look, Emma, about what happened with David. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You're not sorry, Olivia. You're just sorry you got caught. You've always been jealous of me, even though you had everything handed to you on a silver platter. Well, guess what? I don't need you or your pity. I'm doing just fine on my own." Olivia opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. "Save it. I don't want to hear any more of your lies. You and David deserve each other. Two selfish, narcissistic people who only care about themselves. I hope you're happy together." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving a stunned Olivia in my wake. It felt good to finally stand up to her, to show her that I was no longer the weak, submissive sister she had always known. Next, I confronted David. He had been trying to get in touch with me, leaving voicemails and sending texts filled with apologies and pleas for forgiveness. I agreed to meet him, but on my terms. We met at a coffee shop, and I watched as he fidgeted nervously, unable to meet my gaze. "Emma, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry for what I did. It was a mistake, and I regret it every day." I sipped my coffee, my expression neutral. "A mistake? A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store, David. What you did was a choice. A deliberate, selfish choice." He looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed. I know I screwed up. But please, Emma, give me another chance. I love you." I shook my head. "No, David, you don't love me. If you did, you never would have betrayed me like that. You loved the idea of me, the stable, reliable wife who took care of everything while you went out and had your fun. Well, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not going to settle for someone who doesn't respect me or our marriage." David's shoulders slumped, and he looked defeated. "So, what now? What do you want from me?" "I want a divorce," I said calmly. "I want you out of my life, for good. I deserve better than what you and Olivia put me through." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I understand. I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers." I left the coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in months. I had confronted my demons and come out stronger on the other side. I was ready to move on and start the next chapter of my life. The divorce proceedings were long and painful, but I refused to let them break me. I hired a good lawyer and fought for what was rightfully mine. In the end, I walked away with a fair settlement and the satisfaction of knowing that I had stood up for myself. Throughout the process, my family tried to intervene, urging me to give David another chance and not to ruin Olivia's reputation. I laughed in their faces, telling them that they had lost the right to have any say in my life the moment they chose to side with my cheating husband and backstabbing sister. I sold the house David and I had shared, using the money to put a down payment on a cozy apartment in the city. I threw myself into my work, earning a promotion and the respect of my colleagues. I traveled, trying new things and meeting new people, finally living life on my own terms. As I sat in my new home, surrounded by the life I had built for myself, I realized that the betrayal, as painful as it had been a blessing in disguise. It had forced me to confront the toxic patterns and relationships in my life and given me the strength to break free from them. I was no longer the timid, insecure girl who had lived in her sister's shadow. I was a strong, independent woman who had weathered the storm and come out on the other side, ready to take on whatever challenges life threw my way. And as for David and Olivia? They could have each other. I had something far more valuable, my self-respect and the knowledge that I could survive anything. The divorce process was a roller coaster of emotions, but I was determined to handle it with grace and dignity. I hired a brilliant lawyer, Rachel, who understood my situation and fought tirelessly to ensure I received what I deserved. She became not only my legal advocate but also a source of emotional support during the most challenging times. David initially tried to contest the divorce, claiming that we could work things out. However, Rachel presented irrefutable evidence of his infidelity, including hotel receipts and witnesses who had seen him and Olivia together. Faced with the overwhelming proof, David had no choice but to agree to a fair settlement. Throughout the proceedings, my family continued to take Olivia's side, denouncing me for tearing the family apart. They accused me of being selfish and unforgiving, unwilling to see how their actions had shattered my trust and broken my heart. I stood my ground, refusing to be guilted into accepting their toxic behavior. As the divorce finalized, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I was finally free from the weight of my marriage and the expectations of my family. I could now focus on rebuilding my life on my own terms. Meanwhile, David and Olivia's affair had begun to unravel. The initial excitement of their forbidden romance had worn off, and they were left to face the consequences of their actions. Olivia's husband, upon discovering the truth, filed for divorce, leaving her to navigate the legal system alone. David, who had once been so confident and charming, found himself ostracized by our mutual friends. They were disgusted by his betrayal and wanted nothing to do with him. He lost his job due to the negative publicity surrounding the divorce, and he struggled to find new employment. Olivia, too, faced the backlash of her choices. Her perfect image was shattered, and she became the subject of gossip and scrutiny. She had always relied on her looks and charm to get by, but now people saw her for who she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who had no qualms about destroying her own sister's marriage. As for me, I was thriving. Free from the toxicity of my family and the burden of my failed marriage, I could finally focus on my own happiness. I threw myself into my work, taking on new projects and challenges that I had previously been too afraid to tackle. My confidence soared, and I received a well-deserved promotion. I also started to rebuild my social life. I joined a book club and a hiking group, meeting new people who shared my interests and values. I formed deep, meaningful friendships with individuals who supported and uplifted me, rather than tearing me down. One day, while attending a charity event, I met a man named Alex. He was kind, intelligent, and had a wicked sense of humor. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of travel and our experiences with toxic family members. As our relationship blossomed, I was struck by how different it was from my marriage to David. Alex was supportive, honest, and genuinely interested in my thoughts and feelings. He encouraged me to pursue my passions and celebrated my successes. For the first time in my life, I felt truly loved and appreciated for who I was. Months turned into years, and my life continued to improve in ways I had never imagined. I bought a beautiful new home, traveled to exotic locations, and even started my own business. I was surrounded by people who loved and respected me, and I finally felt at peace with myself and my past. One evening, as I was enjoying a glass of wine with Alex on our balcony, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Olivia, reaching out after years of silence. She was in tears, apologizing profusely for her actions and begging for my forgiveness. I listened calmly, feeling a sense of detachment from the pain she had once caused me. I realized that I no longer harbored any resentment or anger towards her. I had moved on, and her actions no longer held any power over me. I told her that I appreciated her apology but that I had forgiven her long ago. I wished her well and hoped that she could find the same peace and happiness that I had. As I ended the call, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. Looking out at the city skyline, with Alex's arm around me, I realized just how far I had come. It's been 5 years since my divorce from David, and I can honestly say that I've never been happier. After the dust settled and I had time to heal, I realized that the betrayal, as painful as it was, had been a turning point in my life. It forced me to confront the toxic relationships and patterns that had held me back for so long and gave me the strength to forge my own path. I threw myself into my work, starting my own business and watching it thrive. I traveled the world, crossing off items on my bucket list and creating unforgettable memories. And most importantly, I surrounded myself with people who loved and supported me unconditionally. Alex and I got married in a beautiful, intimate ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and family. It was a far cry from my first wedding, where I had felt like an outsider in my own family. This time, I was celebrated and cherished for who I was, not who people wanted me to be. As for David and Olivia, I heard through the grapevine that their relationship hadn't lasted. The weight of their betrayal and the consequences of their actions had taken a toll, and they eventually went their separate ways. I didn't take pleasure in their misfortune, but I didn't shed any tears for them either. They had made their choices, and now they had to live with them. My family, too, had realized the error of their ways. It took time, but eventually, they reached out to apologize for their behavior. They admitted that they had been wrong to take Olivia's side and that they had failed me as a family. I accepted their apology, but I also made it clear that our relationship would never be the same. I had learned to set boundaries and prioritize my own well-being, and I wasn't willing to compromise that for anyone. Looking back, I realized that the betrayal was a blessing in disguise. It taught me that I was stronger than I ever knew and that I could survive anything life threw my way. It showed me the importance of surrounding myself with people who lift me up and support me, rather than tear me down. I no longer define myself by my past or by the opinions of others. Wow guys, what a wild ride. I'm so glad Op found the strength to leave that toxic situation and build a better life for herself. It's not easy to walk away from a marriage, especially when your own family is against you, but she did it with grace and dignity. And look at her now, thriving in her career, happily remarried, and surrounded by people who truly love and support her. This is a great reminder that no matter how bad things seem, there's always hope for a better future if you're willing to fight for it. Kudos to Op for being an inspiration. And guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. If you cannot get enough of my content, please subscribe to my channel, like the video and post a comment to support me. I will see you again tomorrow.